If you want to be able to perform any haircut, then this haircut you definitely want to learn. The uniform haircut is a haircut that we teach our students that's cut at 90 degrees all over the head so that every single piece of hair is cut to the exact same length. I start this haircut in 6 sections, 6 panels, just like I do for a long layer and some of my other cuts. This haircut has what's called a traveling guide. We actually start the haircut in the interior or the inside of the hair. We're going to take out our very first section right here on top. So this is section 1. And we're going to start by taking the piece right here at the back. You'll notice that I section out my section with my coarse teeth, and then I flip my comb around to use my fine teeth, and that's really helpful to get the tension that you're going to be needing for your cut. We're going to pick this section up right here at the back of this first panel. Now you'll notice that I'm holding it straight out from where it grows. This is important because this is 90 degrees from the head. So this piece, if I'm holding it here, is 90 degrees. If I pull out this piece, if I pull it all the way back, that's not 90 degrees from where this piece grows. We want to make sure that we're pulling everything out exactly at 90 degrees from the place that it grows or where it lives. So we're going to pick up this first section. With my fine teeth, I'm going to get really good tension. So beyond my first knuckle, you can see in here, I don't really have any tension, but in here, I have lots. So when I go to make this cut, I'm only going to cut to that knuckle. Then I'm going to re-grip the hair. I'm going to hold on to it again, making sure that that hair is between my knuckle and the tips of my fingers, and then I'm going to cut. This is really important to make sure that you have consistent tension throughout that entire piece of hair. This is your very first section cut. This is going to be the guide or the traveling guide for the entire haircut. So basically what I mean by that is that this guide is going to be taken to the next piece of hair that I cut. So I'm not going to be taking the hair back to the guide because the hair isn't moving, the guide is. So my guide is going to travel to the next piece. So with my coarse teeth, I'm going to slice out my next section. And I'm going to push my guide forward into that section. You'll notice that on this side, the hair, it's moving in this direction. The guide is moving, but the hair that I'm cutting is actually straight up and down from where it grows. I'm not bringing the hair back, I'm bringing the guide to the hair. Pull that up, get nice tension. It's being pulled straight out from where it grows. Making sure you can always see your guide. If you can't see your guide, put your scissors down until you do find your guide. And there's our next section cut. And we're going to continue this throughout this section. So now I'm going to take that section that I cut, we'll leave this behind, and we're going to bring it into the next piece of hair that we're going to cut. Making sure to always take that guide to the hair and making sure that you can always see your guide. So if you can look through there, those short pieces, that's my guide. So we're going to pull this straight out from where it grows. Make sure that it's straight up, that we're not pulling back or we're not going forward, but that it's straight up. And we're going to cut. I'm going to re-grip it to make sure I have good tension and cut again. Now in through here, the head shape is changing quite drastically. It's actually dipping down quite a bit. So you're actually going to need to almost, my students will say, my arms, and it's because your arms are out further from your body than they are back here. You are actually going to be taking the hair out a little bit further. So ensure that that hair is being pulled straight up from where it grows, not this way, but straight out. Make sure you see your guide, cut, re-grip to get good tension, and cut. Okay, we have one piece left. Switch to my coarse teeth, divide this. We're going to pick up our section. Now, right now I find it a little bit hard to see my guide, which means I need to take more of my guide with me. If ever you can't see your guide, you either have too much hair in your hand that you're haven't cut yet, or you don't have enough of your guide. So I'm gonna go back and I'm just gonna take a little bit more of my guide to make sure I can see exactly the length that I need to cut. There we go. So as I pull it up, there's really not a lot to cut off of this. She had a haircut before and had a little bit shorter in the front. So there's my guide. I'm pulling it straight out from where it grows. There we go. Now, as I have shown you before, whatever way you cut, you check opposite or cross check. So I held my comb horizontally while I was cutting. So now in order to cross check, I need to hold my comb vertically. So I'm going to pull this section up and I'm going to check to make sure I have a nice straight line there. There's no corners, not getting really long or really short. It's the same length the whole way across that section, which it is. So I did a good job. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the back section. That's next. So we're going to release the back. The way I like to do the back so that you're not handling too much hair, I like to divide it into 3. So I have 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 piece. Okay, so now I don't have too much hair to hold on to. So I have my guide from the top, and now what I have to do is I have to make a guide the whole way down. Now, if you're just learning, you're just starting out and you want to make sure that you're the same length everywhere, with your cutting comb, there's numbers on your cutting comb. These numbers are great for this purpose. So if we measure our guide, the guide that I've cut is about 3.5 inches. So I want my entire head to be 3.5 inches. Every piece of hair that I cut is going to be 3.5. When I do this middle section, I'm going to pull out every piece just until I get the hang of my finger angles. So I'm going to pull out my neck section and I'm going to adjust my fingers. And I'm going to look at the comb and I'm going to say, yep, I'm right about 3.5 inches. Now watch this. If I pull it out and I go all the way up here, I'm going to be at 4 inches. I don't want to be at 4 inches. I want to be at 3.5. That means my finger angle isn't correct. So I'm going to reposition. I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to adjust my fingers so that I'm 3.5. And then I'm going to make my cut. This is the only part of the haircut that I use the numbers for. The rest of it, we can just follow what we already have. Okay, so now I'm going to take my next little piece here. Same thing. Now, what sometimes I've seen happen, if you don't use the numbers, you start going down, so the finger angle comes really sharply in. If that happens, you're going to get a lot shorter. So now it's only going to be about 2 inches. Again, not what we want. So pull it out, double check your length, make sure you're right where you want to be, and then make your cut. Just like we did on the top, we're going to leave a little bit behind and take a little bit with us. Our next section, we're going to pull that out, checking my finger angle, adjusting what I need, and cut. Notice I'm taking pretty small pieces of hair here because I really need to make sure that this is clean and accurate. I'm going to take one more section cutting this way. And once I get to the occipital bone, we're going to change things up a little bit. So 3.5. Okay, so I'm going to take that piece with me. All right, so here's where it's going to change up. So all along I've been cutting over my fingers. Now I'm going to do a technique called palming. Palming is really good when you're doing any cutting below the occipital bone. Not only is it ergonomically correct, it's easier to hang on to and you'll be more precise with it. So now I'm going to be holding the hair on the inside of my hand, just like that. I'm going to measure it and make sure I'm at 3.5 and cut. Now we'll let that part of that go, leave that behind, and we'll go into the rest. Now this part of the head, remember occipital bone from my other video is the bone that sticks out in the back of the head. At the occipital bone, there's a sharp change in the head form. So it comes around and then it dips way in. So what can happen is if you don't have the right finger angle, you can either get really, really long or really, really short. So we're going to pull this out And a good way to do this is a little trick. You're gonna come in and you're gonna put your hands right against the head. So the head isn't like this, the head dips in like this. So that's gonna give you the right finger angle to come out at. So as long as you keep your fingers in line with the head, you're good. So now I'm gonna take my comb, I'm gonna measure out, I'm right at 3.5, right where I wanna be. And I'm gonna cut. I'm gonna leave part of that behind. And I'm gonna do the same thing right in here. So I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna put my fingers right against the scalp. It's even sharper right in there, that little turn. I'm gonna come all the way out. I'm gonna double check, make sure I'm at 3.5. And I'm gonna cut. Now we have the center section done, we've got the top done. Now we just have to move our way around the head. To do that, I always divide the top in half, and I take my center section and I'm gonna take it now to this side that we left out. I'm gonna take it over here. And again, I'm not gonna pull this back or I'm gonna get too long. I don't wanna pull it too far this way or I'm gonna get too short. I wanna make sure that I'm coming straight out from where it grows, ensuring that I can see my guide. I can see my guide. Can you see my guide? It's right in there. So now we're gonna go in and we're gonna cut. I'm gonna take this part with me and I'm gonna keep traveling down the head. I don't need to use my comb to measure anymore because my guide is already measured to that length, so I know I'm good. We are going to start palming again. My guide is right there. I'm going in and I'm cutting. And done. So that side's done. Now we're gonna go over to this side. Make sure you've got lots of guide with you. And can you see the guide? There it is. Always be careful not to cut your guide. So I'm pulling the piece of hair that I'm cutting straight out from where it grows. So much there. There's my guide. Okay, and we're gonna switch gears. We're gonna come in and we're gonna start palming, always making sure that you can see your guide. When the hair is longer, you can definitely push the hair up out of the way, but sometimes when it's shorter, it's just as easy to let it hang there. Okay, so now what we wanna do is we wanna check our section before we go any further. Every section that you cut, check it as you go. When you check, you're cross-checking, which means you need to hold it at the exact same elevation that you cut it. So I cut it here, I didn't cut it down here, I didn't cut it up here. I cut this section here. So if I'm gonna cross-check, I'm gonna cross-check it horizontally because I cut it vertically. So then this section, again, same thing, we're gonna hold it straight out from where it grows, straight out at that elevation because that's where we cut it. Okay, the next one, same thing. And we're just gonna continue pulling it out, ensuring that we have a nice straight line. Now you're not gonna have a blunt line because you cut it vertically, but you shouldn't have any big corners or anything like that. And if you do, don't worry about it, just go back in and grab them. So now that this is finished, now we're going to cut our side back section. Okay, so we pick that up, you can see the guide nice, and we're gonna cut. Pick this up. See that guide, and we're gonna cut. Pick this up, there's my guide. Cut, now we're gonna switch to palming. There's my guide. Go in and we're gonna cut. And then one more. In there. All right, and then we'll do it one more time. So ensure you can see your guide. I'm going to take not quite so much hair there. You always want to make sure you can see your guide. If you can't see your guide, put some hair down. I'm going to switch to palming. Okay, and then the very last section. Okay, and then we're going to just palm one more time. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to check our section. Now, when you check this section, remember the head is turning here. So you don't want to really expect that it's going to have a super straight line because you're going to be turning around the head. You just want to make sure, there you go, looks good. And that little piece there that belongs up there. Okay, so now we're going to go into this section. Sometimes it's good to go back a little bit further than what you even think. What can happen is let's say you think you left off here and you just pick up a piece and you're like, this must be my guide right here, and you just start cutting. Now you've created a whole new haircut that you're doing. So sometimes it's good just to go back a little bit further and make sure that you have, for sure, you know where your guide is. I like to have more guide in my hand than I have hair that I'm cutting because I really like to know where my guide is. And I go back and I take just as much as I can see. Now that's going to change, so I'm taking about 1/2 inch sections. But on someone that has really, really coarse hair, you may have to take even smaller again. And if somebody has really fine hair, you might be able to go a little bit bigger than that. But if you go too big, you end up over directing the hair and you'll end up with a lot of points in your haircut. So try to keep them relatively small. Seeing the guide, that's the most important thing about this haircut. Make sure you can always see your guide. And you'll notice too my standing position. So when I'm working on the left side of the head, if I had a mirror, if I had my station right behind me here, then my back would be to the mirror. On the right side, I'm actually facing the mirror. So you kind of back yourself into the mirror on the left side, and then you walk to face the mirror on the right side. So that is the back. So we have the top and the back done, and now we just have to do the sides. So we're almost done our haircut. I'm gonna give that another check. So remember, even moisture, super important. Takes only a second to wet the hair down. So I've divided the top in half, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a guide now on the top, and I'm going to have a guide on the side. So we're going to slice that out, and we're going to pick that up, and I can see my guide on the top, I can see my guide on the side, and I'm going to make my cut. Leave that behind, pick this up, make my cut, and palm this. And notice I'm just pulling it straight out from where it grows. I'm not pulling it back. I'm not pushing it forward. It's all coming straight out. Take that with us. And notice I'm really trying to keep my sectioning clean. So when I put things behind me and I put them away, I want them away. I don't want them to get in my way. And take this with me. Now, she already has some bangs going on in there too. Little shorter pieces there from a last haircut, and that's okay. So there might not be quite as much to take there, but that's important to remember because you don't want to get thrown off by the fact that there's some shorter pieces going on there at the front. Now, when you look at the side is shorter than the back. Don't panic, that's the way it's supposed to look. So if you'll notice, the hairline here is way up here. The hairline here is way down here. If I'm cutting everything the exact same length, then I know that this has to be shorter than this, the way that it falls on the head. So it's not shorter, it just appears that way because of the way that the hairline is. So that's that side completed, and now we just have one more to do. I'm going back a little bit further. I know I already cut this, but I'm pulling it anyway because I want to make sure I don't have any corners, okay? So I'm pulling this up, straight out. I can see my guide, and I'm gonna cut. I'm gonna let that go. Next section, pull it out, can see my guide, and I'm gonna cut right there. More. Just a little corner right there. My next section is there. Okay, you can see the guide in there, so that's what I'm going to cut. Leave that behind. And the last piece. Keeping organized with your work is really important. If you struggle with your sectioning, then that's really something you're going to want to work on, because haircuts like these, where you're doing a lot of vertical cutting, if you don't stay organized, you'll get lost really easily and you'll make a lot of mistakes. So to be really efficient and really precise in your cutting, your sectioning is very important. So right now, like, the hair is quite short. I don't have any clips in the hair at this point, but I still managed to put nice clean lines in the hair to keep myself organized, so I know exactly where the hair is, I know where the hair is that I'm going to cut, and I know where the hair is that I've already cut, so I don't get lost. Now, something that I tell my students is, if you've cut hair already, leave it out of the clip. Once you've cut it, it should be out of a clip. If you haven't cut it yet, then it should be in a clip. That way when you take every section down, you know where you're at. So if something happened that you had to step away for a minute, you can come back and know exactly where you are and not get lost. These are all the uniform layers in my haircut. So now if I go through the haircut, I should be able to pull it up diagonally, I should be able to pull it up horizontally, I should be able to hold it up vertically, and I shouldn't have any major corners or any major pieces coming out of the hair. When I'm all finished, I like to do a pivot check. So I go right to the apex, I hold it up, and it's good. Go back to the apex, and I'm taking diagonal sections and I'm checking to make sure that everything connects, everything blends, that there's no corners anywhere, and I work my way all around the head doing what I call the pivot check. So everything is coming right from the apex and I'm just moving around the head and everything looks good. So my interior is done, it's all good, all the layers are put in, everything is at 90 degrees and everything is right around that 3.5 inch mark. Now what you want to do is you want to clean up your perimeter. So perimeter isn't as difficult as you would think. It's not just a blunt cut, right? It's not just one line across the bottom. We actually have 3 lines that we have to connect. So we have a line in the front, so we have that fringe section, we have a line on the side, and we also have a line in the back. Let's take a look at this and see where we're at with her length. I think her length there is pretty good. I like it there, so I want to leave it there. So if I like that length, then I want to look at the side length, which I also kind of like. So that's my side length. So if I like the length, I'm just going to look at it and make sure that my line is pretty clean, which it is. The only thing now that you want to do is make sure that your front and your side connects. So the only thing that I would take out of there is that little corner that separates the front from the side. So I'm going to pull that out. There's my front, there's my side, and I'm just going to point cut that out of the hair. Just like that, very soft, okay? And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. See that corner right in there? We're just gonna point cut that right out. Just like that, all done. Then we have the line in the back. So let's see, do we like the length in the back? She needs a little trim in the back, so we are gonna trim her just a little bit. So I'm gonna center my body, and I am just gonna point cut this. When hair has a lot of layers, I do like to point cut perimeter. It tends to keep the hair really soft looking. So there's my blunt line across the back. So now I have to make sure that my back connects with my sides. So here we go. We're gonna take our side section and our back section. I'm gonna slide my fingers, and there's just gonna be that little tiny corner right there, and I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna point cut that out. And I'm gonna do the exact same thing on this side. This is a haircut that we do on our board exam in the province that I'm from. It's a haircut that you're going to end up doing probably every day in the salon, whether you customize it a little bit with some over direction or you use aspects of it, you will use it every day. So practice, practice, practice this one. It's great to know how to do a uniform haircut, but you may want to customize it with some bangs. I created this video to show you 5 different ways that you can cut bangs.